as schools log in, if you will please type your school name so that we have an account of who all's viewing this presentation as we get started. This is going to be the Math 3 RCD presentation for today for the PD sessions. As you guys log in, if you will please type your school name as you guys are into the Math 3 presentation for RCD. And we'll get going in a second. stuff. Okay, guys. Yeah. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started in presenting the Math 3 RCD Curriculum Development Unit that we've worked on over the summer. Um, I'm Brittany Taylor. I'm currently working at Johnson County Middle College High School as a math teacher, and I'm actually going to be transitioning into the high school math curriculum specialist position in a couple of weeks. And with me is Eula Coburn from Clayton High School, and she's going to be moderating the questions. So, as you guys have questions of anything that I say or anything with the curriculum development, you guys can type that in to the Q&A part, and we'll answer those as we kind of go along. Anything that we cannot answer, we will send that directly to CIA. We're going to jot those down, and we'll be sharing those with the CIA department as well, and those will be answered over the next week or so as we do that. So um, hopefully everybody can see the Math 3 presentation. And so there are four main parts to the rigorous curriculum design that we looked at. You have big picture connections, building the foundation, designing the units of study, and then actually implementing the units of study. The definition of rigorous curriculum that we were given, it's a rigorous curriculum in an inclusive set of intentionally aligned components. So we want clear learning outcomes with matching assessments, engaging learning experiences, instructional strategies, and the components are organized into sequenced units of study. So we're going to go over this kind of the phases and what we did for Math 3 over the summer, over the past few months that we've been working on this. So we were broken up into two phases. In phase 1, we prioritized the standards. So we took the standards and we looked at those and we decided, which were priority and which were supporting. And then we grouped those standards and then we named the units and we created the syllabus for the course, which we'll be sharing with you in a little while. Phase 2, we actually created the unit materials. So this included a unit planning organizer, engaging learning tasks, big ideas and essential questions, post and pre-assessments with answer keys, and then key vocabulary. So these are all the steps from phase 1 and 2. We did a total of 12 steps. It actually felt like we did a lot more than that. These are kind of the 12. We did a lot of these simultaneously together. So these are the 12 we went through, and like I just said, we prioritized the standards, then we grouped them, we did unit names and pacing, we created the syllabus and pacing, we finalized that in that step, then we unwrapped the priority standards, we looked at big ideas and essential questions, we created the post and pre-assessments, we gathered instructional materials and resources, looked at differentiation strategies, key vocabulary terms, and then create engaging learning tasks, and we put that all together in a unit planning organizer. So over the presentation, we're going to go through each step and kind of go into a little bit of detail and show you guys what we did with the Math 3. So in the prioritizing the standards, we reviewed the Math 1 and the Math 2 curriculum, and standards that we saw were taught in Math 1 and Math 2 that also appeared in Math 3. We let those be supporting standards, and then we prioritized the Math 3 standards. So anything that was strictly in Math 3, then we said that those were new concepts, and we said that those are a priority for us. And we also looked at that from this point of view of, in this standard, could we cover other standards by doing this one standard, and that also made it a priority. The next step was we actually grouped the standards. So we reread through all the standards that we had looked at, and we put at least 2 to 3 priority standards per unit that grouped together. And the standards actually kind of grouped themselves together. One standard led to another standard, which led to another standard. So it wasn't like we as a group put it, we said that these all should go together. They kind of did that by themselves. Then we have supporting standards, which followed the corresponding priority standards. And we actually took all of that and organized it on chart paper as a group when we went through that process. Once we got done grouping the standards, we did unit name and pacing. And units were named based on priority standards and overarching concepts. So once we kind of looked at the standards and we read through them, we kind of looked at, okay, what's the overarching theme for these standards? And that's kind of what we based the names of the units on. And then we did an estimated amount of days per unit for both semester courses and year-long courses at this point. So nothing of the pacing or anything like that was finalized at this point. As far as the units, we created 9 units for the Math 3. So in Unit 1, we created a functions unit, which is kind of a review from Math 2 of linears, quadratics, exponentials, and maybe radical functions. And then we moved into quadratics and conic sections, higher degree polynomials, which are like your cubics and your quartics, statistics and probability, exponential and logarithmic functions, rational functions, polygons, which has some of the constructions in it for the geometry portion of Math 3, circles, and then the last unit we put together was trigonometry. So the fourth step, once we had done the grouping of the units and had the namings of the units done, we created the syllabus, and we created 3 different syllabi. We created a semester-long honors syllabus, a semester-long standard syllabus, and a year-long standard syllabus. And the syllabus, this is the Math 3 honors syllabus, um, and all of this is shared with you. So if you can't see it on the presentation right now, you'll be able to you'll have access to it as to go through it. But the so um, I don't know, that. Slide one. My hang up. This I know it doesn't. Sorry guys, we're trying to get this Google Hangout down. I don't know what it's seeing this screen. It's not seeing my RCD presentation. Not seeing anything. Sorry, we're having difficulties with this getting this to share. I don't know why. I'm trying to get in this. We're having difficulties with this. Can you guys see the slides now? Okay. That's what I had. Just a white screen. Okay, let's get our technical presentation. So we're having difficulty sharing the presentation through Google Hangouts, but we're going to get you guys the link uh, to the presentation so you guys can view it as well. So, and that'll be coming through on the Q&A part. So I'm just going to keep talking through the presentation and you guys will be able to view it later. So essentially, in the syllabus for the semester long, or any of the syllabus, or any of the syllabi actually, there's a course description of what Math 3 is, and then there's the priority goals, which there's a chart that has the percentage of on-state assessments that will show you each objective and the priority goals, and then how much of that would account on the state exam. And then there's a course outline that has the units and the number of days per unit we allotted for either the semester or the year long. And then a unit breakdown as opposed to what should go into each unit. And then there's some places where you as the teacher will fill in your course requirements, your classroom resources, grading and expectations, and course weights. Course weight guidelines, we've given suggestions in which you should stay in those percentage ranges that we've given, just so that it's cohesive across the county, and then your specific classroom rules, and then other items to consider. And at the bottom, there's a student and parent guardian contract that is gone with every syllabus that we created for Math 3. And all of these should be signed by the student and the parent, and they should be returned to you throughout the probably that first week of school. You should get these back so that parents and students both understand um, what they've read and that you have contact information for them. So after we created the syllabus, we created the pacing guide that goes along with that. And within the pacing guide, we finalized this. The pacing includes instructional days and buffer days. And buffer days, we were told to think of a buffer as scheduled breathing room that gives us extra time to remediate students who are almost proficient, as demonstrated by the end of unit assessment, or intervene for students who are far from proficiency. So these buffer days can be used for testing, they can be used as a catch-up day for kids who are behind, and an extension day for those who are ahead or are at proficiency already with the concept. But they just give you some breathing room within that unit. And these dates by any means are not finalized, they're not set in stone. This is a work in progress, so please understand that. We do accept and want your feedback as you go through the units. Did you have too short of time here? Did you have too much time here? Things of that nature. So you can see when you're looking at the presentation, there's a screenshot on slide 12 of kind of what the pacing and syllabus or the pacing guide looks like. And each unit is broken down into instructional days and buffer days. And so like unit 1, we've broken down to be anywhere between 5 and 7 days. So we've given 3 days for instruction with a couple of buffer days for assessments or catch up. And then unit 2 is the quadratics and conics section. And we said about 10 days, 9 for instruction, and maybe 1 buffer day. And that could be anywhere between for assessment or enrichment day, but they can go in the middle of the unit, it can go at the end of the unit. And we've kind of given suggestions as to when you could use that buffer day, but it's, again, these are all suggestions of what we kind of come up with and what we thought of as a group when we were working on this. After we did that, we started to unwrap the priority standards. Once we unwrap the priority standards, we organize them by units. And unwrapping means an educator analyzes the wording of a standard to determine exactly what students need to know, which are the concepts, and then be able to do, which are the skills. The concepts were the important nouns or noun phrases, and the skills were the verbs. So we looked at these, and we went through and we highlighted the verbs so that we knew those were the skills to look at, and then we underlined the important nouns or noun phrases, which gave us the concepts that we knew students needed to know. And we put all of this in a document, and we compared it to Bloom's taxonomy levels. So we looked at this and we said, okay, what level of Bloom's does this fit into? And if it was level 1, 2, 3, so forth and so on. And there's a screenshot in the presentation as well for that. It's on slide 14. This is the document we went through, and this was really key in us planning the units once we actually got down to the um, meat of actually what are the resources and what instruction do we need to give the students and resources we need to give to you guys. So this played a really key role uh, in our planning for the end results. So, so step 6 was the big ideas and essential questions. So big ideas convey to students the benefit or the value of learning the standards, and they represent what educators want students to know long after instruction ends. And so we went through each unit and we looked at this and we said, okay, what are what are the key things we really want students to be able to know? And so we kind of created big ideas of what would come out of each unit, and then we created essential questions. And essential questions are supposed to pique the students' interest in a topic. They're actually used to focus instruction and assessments throughout the unit. And big ideas are students' responses to the teacher's essentials questions. So, when you ask an essential question, the student's response should be one of those big ideas that we looked at. They're kind of the broad, overarching spectrum of the unit that we want them to know. And again, on slide 16, there's a screenshot of kind of the document we used when we came up with big ideas and the essential questions. And all the big ideas are written in paragraph format, and they're kind of an outline of what's to be expected. In step 7, we created the assessments. And so we created the post assessments first. With RCD, the big key here is to always begin with the end in mind. And so we created the post assessments first. And then once we had the post assessments created, we created the pre assessments that go along with the same unit. There's a connection between the post and the pre assessments. There are 4 to 5 questions on the pre assessments that test their prerequisite skills. So we looked at the unit and we said, okay, what skills do they need from a prior unit or from a previous math course that they should already have? And then 4 to 5 questions on the pre-assessment are concept skills. So what should be taught in the unit as they go through it. These are things that they'll see. And those 4 to 5 questions, we took those and we actually put them on the post-assessment as well. So the pre-assessment and the post-assessment have 5 questions that are in common. And this is used to help us measure student growth. So we can see what did they know on the pre-assessment and then where did they get to between instruction on the post-assessment. And on the post-assessment, there's about 15 to 20 questions on each post-assessment. All assessments have answer keys, so both the pre and the post-assessment all have answer keys that you'll have access to once you're looking in the folder for the Math 3. And again, if there's any errors or you see anything in those that needs to be fixed, again, please let us know, and I'll show you later where you can actually fill out the form to give us those suggestions and feedback. And again, these are just suggestions for each unit, kind of a starting place for you guys. Once we created the assessments, we looked at instructional materials. So we really looked at what resources are going to be helpful in facilitating the instruction. So what online resources could we use? Are there old textbooks that we currently have that we could use? Where could we pull from? Different worksheets. And then if there were specific people who needed to be involved in order to make the instruction occur, then we looked at those as well. Step 9 is the differentiation. So additional supports that educators use during high quality lessons to modify or adjust instruction for students who need a different approach in order to understand. And differentiation applies to those students who do not meet proficiency, to those who do meet proficiency, and then those who are above proficiency already. So we can differentiate for all students. And then each unit has suggestions for just differentiation strategies in general, intervention strategies, strategies for exceptional children, and strategies for English language learners. In step 10, we looked at the key vocabulary. So we went back and looked at the unwrapped priority standards, and from there we identified the key terms that we thought students need to know throughout each unit. And in step 11, we started to create engaging learning tasks. We referred to the unwrapped standards while we did this, and we created performance tasks based on priority standards. Um, for each task, we've provided a synopsis of what each task um, kind of encompasses and covers, and then we provided student handouts for each of those tasks. Um, and this led to a lot of great discussion in our groups as we were going through this and creating those. And all of these steps led up to the unit planning organizer. And the unit planning organizer, which you guys will be able to see, each unit has this. But just to kind of walk you through uh, the unit, looking at the unit 1 planning organizer, um, it already highlights the priority Common Core state standards and the supporting Common Core state standards. So the first thing that you'll see is you'll see all the standards listed that are within this unit, and some of these are overarching standards that you'll see throughout every unit. We pick some of those out, and then we have really specific ones to that unit. And then underneath that are the unwrapped priority standards. So you get to see what our work was when we unwrap them. So you'll see things that are highlighted in red, which will be the verbs, and then the things that are underlined are the nouns, which we use to interpret what skills students should be able to do from that unit. And then in Unit 1, you'll see there's a box for sequencing. This is suggestions. Again, you can go in any order in which you wish to go by, but we gave a suggestion of sequencing on maybe how you could teach this unit, and not every unit has that yet. Again, like I said before, this is a working document, and we are always looking at trying to improve and work on this as we go along. You have the unwrapped concepts and the unwrapped skills and which level of Bloom's taxonomy that falls under. And so you get to see the unit really broken down into, okay, these are the things I need to make sure that I do for my students. Then you have the essential questions and the big ideas for the unit. So these are questions that your students should be able to answer at the end of the unit and throughout the unit as you go through the instruction. Um, and then standardized assessment correlations. And then there's unit assessments. There's a link to the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, and the pre-assessment keys and the post-assessment keys. We'll have access to that as well. And then informal progress monitoring checks, so things that you can do to kind of check to see where their progress is. So whether it be homework, thumbs up, thumbs down, individual whiteboards, exit slips or tickets out the door, warm-up problems, and then quick discussions on the concepts that you've been covering. And then there's the engaging learning experiences. There's a link to the engaging learning experiences planner. The engaging learning experiences planner is where all of the tasks are housed, and each unit has one of these. And so the tasks are in this document. There's a synopsis of the task, and then there are the handouts needed for the task at hand. And again, you can utilize those to however you see fit. And then as you keep going through, there's differentiation strategies listed there, and you can see the different ones for differentiation, intervention, uh, special education students, and English language learners. And at the bottom of the document are instructional resources, so physical resources such as textbooks, and then technology-based resources, so different links to online resources that we thought would be useful and helpful in certain units. And then the last thing in this document is the unit vocabulary terms, and then the interdisciplinary connections throughout. So each unit has a unit planning organizer, and this is where you can find every bit of information that you need for that unit. This is much different than what Math 1 and Math 2 started out with, and for us as Math 3, I think we thought that this was a good starting place for us. And so everything that you need is housed in one document, and that will link out to other documents that you can get to. With RCD, we did experience some challenges in our group. One of the big things for us was we had a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. And so trying to figure out how to get all of that done in that time period um, was a challenge for us. And then looking at things from a perspective of beginning with the end in mind. We hear that phrase a lot, and for us, that was something that we kind of struggled with, was looking at the end picture and then working backwards from there. And as far as successes go, um, one of the big successes we had was collaboration. There was about 7 of us in the group, and we worked well as a team. We all brought different ideas to the table, and the collaboration from the 7 across the county really was a huge success for us. The engaging learning activities brought up a lot of good discussion for us, and being able to see what teachers across the county were doing, and being able to pull different resources together from that. And then just the layout of the template. The layout of the template is so much easier to read, and like I said before, everything is housed in one document. Um, so as far as an organizational piece goes, everything is laid out for you. And again, it's just kind of some suggestions that we've come up with and things like that. So, again, as I said and emphasized, this is a working document. We're not saying that it's perfect by any means, but we think it's a very good starting place for us to go from. And so I know Yule's been answering some questions, and I know you guys have we've had some issues in you being able to see the document. Um, but you guys have access to get to the online documents. If you go to the Johnson County Schools homepage, huh, so if you get to the Johnson County Schools homepage, over the summer, we did not have rights to actually log in on this page. We have just now changed it to where you have rights to log in on this homepage. So if you are on Johnson County Schools homepage, at the top you have the login button, and you use your Active Directory login, um, so which is what you use to get into your desktop at school or onto your computer. And so um, if you're on the Johnson County Schools homepage and you log in, what now happens is, now when you log in, you obviously don't have editing rights to this page. You still have to go to your school page to get your editing rights back. But when you own the Johnson County Schools homepage and you log in, over in the left hand corner, besides select a school, now pops up this link that's called RCD Units. And if you click on RCD Units, um, then that will take you. But if you click on RCD Units, then this will take you to a screen that's talking about the JCS RCD frameworks. And then you would click on the high school level. And when you click on high school, it will take you to uh, the different ones that we have. So American History 1, Biology, Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3. And you can click on the Math 3, and that will take you to all of the units that we've organized and all of the different documents that I've talked about that we went through. The other part of this, when you are on the RCD Units framework page, at the bottom there is a contact us link, and the contact us link will take you to a form. And on this form, this is where, if you are going through the units and you notice something, so let's say that you noticed that an answer on the answer key was wrong, or um, maybe that this doesn't really fit into this unit, maybe it would fit better into a different unit, or you had too much time here and not enough time here. This form, if you can put in your name, which course it applies to, the name of the document, and school name that you're coming from, and then you can put in your comments and concerns, and that will go directly to CIA, which then will refer to um, the different um, groups if needed. But CIA should be able to answer most of your questions and take most of your concerns and feedback um, from the units, and we should be able to help with those as well. So, like I said, this is going to be a work in progress. Math 3 is a completely brand new course for Johnson County Schools anyway, and so we're going to go through it, and we'll be revising and working on it throughout this semester and throughout next semester as we continue to work and build on this. So that's kind of the end of the overview of the presentation. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them if you have not already. You can ask them in the Q&A section. And if any questions arise after the presentation, you can email somebody from the CIA department and they will be able to answer your questions as well. So that concludes the end of the presentation.